Good morning. I'd like to call the Kankakee County Full Board meeting for March 8th to order. Today's invocation is from Tinker Parker.
Gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to bring this board together this morning. We thank you for each and every one who is here today. You have blessed us with supportive people who seek the welfare of our county. May we lead through humility and love and help us make our counties right and just decisions. Keep us grounded in what is good and help us lead through faith to work for the people we serve. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that you may direct us. We pray today for all of our leaders, nation, state, and county. Watch over all who protect and serve our community. Keep them safe from harm. And please be with the Africano family during their time of grief. Grant us peace and protection to the people of Ukraine. Give them strength and courage to defend what is good, right, and holy. Keep them safe from harm and provide for all their needs. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, under liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all.
For roll call, I'd like to thank the VAC for helping us get our flag situation straightened out. We had them sitting back in the corner, and the American flag always needs to be in the superior position. With limited space, we kind of came up with something, so I wanted to thank them for their assistance there. So if we could, roll call, please.
Mr. Hess. Present. Mr. Tholen. Mrs. Polk. Mr. Snipes.
Present.
Mr. Seroy.
Present.
Mr. Lear.
Present.
Mrs. Weber.
Present.
Mrs. Peters. Mr. Payton.
Present.
Mrs. Parker.
Present.
Mr. Fairfield.
Present.
Mr. Carrico.
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Present.
Mr. Swanson. Mr. Featherling.
Present.
Mr. Dunhill.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Long. Mr. Kirkstra.
Present.
Mr. Hunter.
Is Hunter via Zoom?
Ms. Bryan. Mr. Collins. Ms. Hudson.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand. Mr. Gowler. Mr. Raymond.
Present.
Mr. Wheeler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we could we get a motion to approve Mr. Hunter Evergreen until he's through with recovery, and for all meetings, and then also Mr. Smith until he's fully recovered as well. Shouldn't be as long term. So is there a motion on that, Mr. Seroy? A second. Go with Mr. Eckhoff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Officially in the meeting, gentlemen. And we won't have to do that again until you come back. So
Thank you.
all righty. Moving on, have no public comments, nothing today. All right. Presentations, proclamation. We have a proclamation honoring Mark Rogers for 36 years of public service to the citizens of Kankakee County. If we could get that read into the record, sir.
Proclamation of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, honoring Mark Rogers for 36 years of public service to the citizens of Kankakee County. Whereas Mark Rogers began his career with Kankakee County in April of 1986 as an engineer in the Kankakee County Highway Department. And whereas Mark Rogers served the citizens of Kankakee County and the Kankakee County Board for 36 years, including positions as an engineer and as the assistant county engineer. And whereas Mark Rogers served the citizens of Kankakee County and the Kankakee County Board as the county engineer from April 10th, 2012 through his retirement date of March 26th, 2022, and whereas Mark Rogers contributed greatly to the improvement of Kankakee County roads and bridges as a contributing member of the Kankakee Area Transportation Study and chairman of the Technical Advisory Committee of CATS from January 25th, 2012 through March 25th, 2022. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Kankakee County Board greatly appreciates Mark Rogers' service to his community and the Kankakee County Board throughout his 36-year career with Kankakee County. Be it further proclaimed that the Kankakee County Board extends their best wishes on a well-deserved retirement.
Is there a motion on that, Mr. Carrico? Second, Mr. Featherling. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Mark, if you could join us up here, we had a little presentation for you. Mr. Carrico had a few words, I guess. Then maybe you might make an introduction when you're done for the board. I appreciate that.
All right. Stand it over here then. Well, it's my honor and a pleasure as the chairman of the Highway Committee to present Mark with this, plaque, and to thank you for all the years of dedication and service to the citizens of this county. So thank you very much for everything, and I learned a lot with you. Tell me that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm a little hoarse, coming off of a cold, but feeling a lot better. I want to just thank the board for all their support all these years. I'd also like to thank my staff. I've got a wonderful staff at the County Highway Department that works hard and has been very dedicated to public safety. I'd also like to thank Jim Pekarzik. He was my mentor. He made my career very enjoyable. The county's been very good to me. I'd also like to thank my wife for enduring all of our travels and things together here. Like I said, the county has been very good to me, and it's been a pleasure working for the county for my career for 36 years. And as that's coming to an end, I just want to introduce the new county engineer that's effective March 27th, Greg Hayden. He's in the back there. He takes over, like you said, March 27th. And he's been with us since the 14th of February, and we've been doing a transition, so working out well. But I just want to thank everybody again. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. So Mark has promised to come back and plow some snow for us every once in a while when he feels lonely. Not. He said, I think he said you're on your own. No. But no, I really appreciate it, Mark, for everything. I'll miss the impromptu conversations as you're running through the office to go into Anita's office and discuss the issue of the day. So it's we do appreciate everything, and we'll miss you. Under certificates of appreciation, 15 years. We got John Higginson, Courts, Bernice Jarrett, Corrections, Jasper Jones, Corrections, Bill Perkins in the Coroner's Office, and then for 25 years, Todd Schlondorf in Corrections. So I don't think they're here today. But we got as always, we got the finest certificate that money can buy, and we'll get that over to them. But we do appreciate it. Minutes of the last meeting, February 8th, 2022. Is there a motion? Mrs. Parker, Mr. Payton with a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under Claims Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your Committee on County Claims would beg leave to report they have examined the following claims presented and recommend payment. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to issue orders to the several claimants. Total claims of $6,278,263.20.
All right, is there a motion to approve the claims? Mr. Lear, second. Mr. Fairfield, that'd be a roll call vote.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under department reports, if we can get those read in the record, please.
County Collector's Monthly Report for January 2022. Total cash and bank and investments of $1,824,448.15. County Treasurer's Monthly Report for January 2022. Total cash and investments, $1,824,448.15. Coroner's Monthly Report for January 2022. Total calls 158, coroners 19, autopsy 6, toxicology 6, donations 1, fetal 1, hospice 65, referral 73, 105 cremations, 1 x-ray, 5 pending, and the coroner's income summary report for January 2022, $7,864.74. The circuit clerk cash book for month ending January 2022, total disbursed of $238,921.62. Recorder's monthly report for January 2022, disbursement fees paid to the county treasurer of $154,489.05. County clerk's monthly report for January 2022, total fees of $29,692.68. Monthly building division report, total permits of 43, total fees of $21,356 with a grand total including the extra fees of $24,056. Animal control monthly report for January 2022, total for the month of $4,632 and total animals handled of 82. The IPTIP building fund has no money in it. Does that read right?
No, it should still be the same. I don't know if
Okay.
that's a typo, but when it went through committee, that amount was still there.
Okay. The monthly resolution list for March 2022, total of the county of $1,471.
All right, is there a motion on that to start with? Mrs. Hudson, or Miss Hudson, sorry, the second. Mr. Kirkstra? It's a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes, sir. Question?
Now with these claims, have the auditor went through these claims? Have he put out any positions or anything?
These aren't claims.
What are we on?
These are the department reports.
Oh, okay, no, I'm looking for the claims, thanks.
Every claim goes through the auditor's office, though,
Okay, so he says the position up on it?
if we can read it. Yeah, we have trouble reading his comments a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
So we requested that in writing from our finance committee chairman to please type out his comments, so we can
Okay.
respond accordingly. And usually that's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 per finance committee meeting we go through. Would that be a fair estimate? Okay, that there's an issue, that he has an issue, excuse me. So the motion carried, were acceptable, the motion carried?
Yeah.
Because that was during the question? Okay, so don't have to redo that again. Thank you. Under consent agenda, is there anything that needs to be pulled off and discussed after this? Separately? Second time.
Take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve consent agenda. Is there a second on that? Mr. Miller, if we can get him read into the record, please.
The appointment of Bruce Parlberg to the Regional Planning Commission, the reappointment of William Hem to the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District, the reappointment of Alice Argelian to the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District, declaration of surplus equipment, show bus numbers 10 and 11, the repeal of stipulation listed in Resolution 2019-08-13-124, adoption Kankakee County Board's 2022 legislative agenda, amendment of Section 2-24 of the Kankakee County Code, districts and representation thereof.
All righty, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Kirko.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling. Mr. Donnell. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond.
No.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye. Alrighty, motion carries. All right, moving on to the highways and buildings, the concurring resolution. Is there a motion to pay those bills, please, Mr. Dunhill, with a second? Mr. Kirkstra, is there anything to read in the record on the title? It's pretty much just says concurring resolution, correct? All right. You see the bill amounts on the invoice as approved by the Highway Committee. Any questions there? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Snipes?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mrs. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Mrs. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Fotherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Raymond? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to number 39. If we get the title of that read in the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois regarding ZBA case 21-12, variance of section 121-99E lot width on a parcel generally situated in section 9 of Limestone Township.
All righty. Is there a motion to deny on this one, I believe, was the way that it left PZA? Am I correct? Was that the way this was? Because it was a 5-0? No, I believe that was the case. Yeah, it was the motion was to deny from PZA. Is that correct, Mr. Wilson?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So that is correct. So we need to have that motion, if so choose, to agree with PZA and ZBA. Just making sure that that's clear. So the motion will be to concur with PZA and ZBA, and you can make the motion otherwise too, but that's the way that it would come. So is there a motion on that side of things? Mrs. Weber? Is that your motion? Second? Mr. Fairfield? All righty. Ben, if you want to run through some things.
Okay, and Kelly will put up an image for you. So this is ZBA case 21-12. This is Jason and Christina Midstarfer, owners and applicants. We did not have an address at the point, but this is a pin in Limestone Township. We have a variance request for lot width. It's in an A1 district, and the requirements under an A1 district is, in order for it to be buildable, it has to be 20 acres and have 330 feet of frontage. The current frontage as it's drawn, as they purchased it from the neighboring landowner, is 50 feet in width. And as it's a newly created lot, on 124, the ZBA voted to deny based on a distinct lack of hardship under number one, the hardship. It's an entirely self-created hardship. At one point, just for this committee, during the testimony and commentary, the owner of this subject property did indicate he will reach out to the neighboring property owner to purchase more property, and so that also then leads into that lack of hardship where they created this lot very recently that just didn't fit our ordinance. So they can go back, purchase additional frontage, and then it will fit our ordinance, and then they won't need that variance.
Is there any questions for Ben on that? Mr. Snipes?
So it's my understanding that they were purchasing this to build with a house upon?
They have purchased it to build a home, yes.
Okay, and that they need 20 acres to build a home?
So in the A1 district, yeah.
In the A1 district?
Yeah, so it's at 330 feet of frontage at the building setback line and 20 acres.
Okay, so is that and this is residential or agriculture?
That's A1.
Okay, so it's agriculture, and that's why they need the 20 acres.
Yeah, they need the, under the ordinance, in order in an A1 district, they would need that to meet that requirement.
Okay, and so when they came after the applications, all that was explained to them?
It was, and this is where our ordinance is relatively clear on this. The panhandle just needs to be wider. They need to have that 330 feet on that purchase all the way back to the building setback line, and that would satisfy our ordinance and wouldn't require then that lot width variance.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so the motion, the second was to deny. So all those in favor of denial, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, number 40.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois regarding ZBA case 21-13, special use permit number 1, amusement facilities in the I-2 General Industrial District in Section 26 of Manteno Township.
All righty, this one I believe was a recommendation of approval out of PZA. So is there a motion to approve? Mr. Featherling, a second. Mr. Dono. All righty, details, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is ZBA case 21-13. This is Mr. Andrew M. Lee Jr., owner and applicant. This one is zoned I-2 underlying zoning out in Diversitech. It does have a special, a PUD as part of that zoning. But in this instance, we're talking about a special use permit for an amusement facility. So that's an assembly use. So Mr. Lee owns the subject property and actually the property adjacent. He's constructed, the aerial does not show it, but he initially constructed a steel structure for his bounce house and outdoor portable toilet operation. He subsequently petitioned the county to utilize a portion of that space for indoor event space. So that's where that assembly use comes in. On 2/14, the ZBA unanimously voted to approve the conditions for the special use permit, and then at the February PZA meeting, we had a subsequent vote to accept the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation. There are some conditions within this. So the proposed conditions are that all parking shall be contained on the subject site and no on-street parking will be allowed. All activities pertaining to parties shall be held within the building and not in the parking lot. The occupancy load for the building will be set by the Manteno Fire Department, and the facility will be in compliance with all laws, ordinance, codes at that time. So this is a use, and when we talk about zoning, this is the use of the site in relation to neighboring properties' uses. We still have subsequent building codes and fire codes that would apply to this to make sure that it's safe if anybody were in the building, that they would be able to safely exit or have appropriate bathroom facilities that would meet the Americans with Disabilities Act and things along those lines. So this is, we're here for today is to talk about the use. We'll subsequently apply all of our codes and laws to that still.
All right, any questions on that one? I think the committee's only concern was late night noise, and I think that falls under other ordinances because this is in the county. So they'd be complying with all of our other ordinances as part of this as well. So I think that was really the only concern I remember from PZA. Am I correct in that? Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Just one other one. Now, there won't be any alcohol served at this facility?
They're not, from my understanding, they're not applying for a liquor license under that. The way and I'm not an expert on liquor licenses, but facilities like this, if you host a party, they can do BYOB without requiring a liquor license. From my understanding, that's not something that we necessarily regulate, but that conceivably could be part of this. So this is a operation of like any other facility within, if you rent space to people and you say you want to have a bridal shower and have champagne at it, that would be something that I believe would be allowed. But they would operate within those parameters where it would be inside, it wouldn't spill out, people wouldn't be parking on the streets and interrupting the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could apply, that's for sure. But as it was mentioned, I don't think you're going to see bounce houses with liquor, so although that might be a good time, but for a while. But no, they could apply down the road, and they'll be subject to everything else, which includes our building codes and fire codes. So it's all wrapped up into the same conversation. So, any other questions?
Hunter, motion approved.
We got those.
You got those? Okay.
Yep, got them. Appreciate it. All those in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on. Number 41.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing execution and amendment of Section 5311 Grant Agreement Fiscal Year 2023.
If we could we read the title of 42 and 43, because these really all go together. And we'll just vote on them all at once, because you can't do one without the other.
41 and 42?
Yeah, 41, 42, and 43.
Okay.
Yeah.
42 is resolution authorizing execution amendment of Downstate Operating Assistance Grant Agreement Fiscal Year 2023. 43 is purchase of service agreement with Showbus to operate the county's rural general public transportation service state year fiscal 2023.
So there'd be a motion to combine and approve on this one, and then we get into details. So, Ms. Hudson, Mr. Eckhoff with a second. Cliff notes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not Delbert Skimmerhorn. I can wear my own hat today. So this is, I would say, Cliff notes for this is, I say this every time. Fundamentally, the difficulty in public transportation is trying to maximize and leverage our dollars. We spend about $700,000 every year in public transportation in Kankakee County, and that comes from about $170,000 on the Section 5311 side, and then we receive a $1.2 million grant on downstate operating assistance, and we're never quite able to maximize that. I will say, though, recently this board took action to work with our partner Showbus. We're actually going to get a grant from the Age Guide, which is formerly the Area Agency on Aging. So we'll be able to further maximize some of our dollars by using some of those senior funds. Ideally, we'd like to maximize this and do about $2 million in transit every year. It's a very difficult business to be in, but these funds are made available to us, and we're trying to maximize them every year. It's a little unfortunate we're never quite able to really do that full $2 million, but we're kind of working at it, making the system better. So yeah, we'll spend around $166,000 in 5311, and then about $550 of the dope funds, and this year hopefully some more of that, up to that $1.2 million number. And the one, I guess maybe the main cliff note for this board, $15,000 of cash comes from Kankakee County for this system. So there is this, we'll do chairman will ask for a voice vote because you're spending money. There are tax dollars going into this to make sure our residents are afforded that ability to have public transportation.
So 15 grand, it'll be roll call, but
Sorry.
no, that's all right. I know what you meant. We're in at 15,000. If we were to put 100,000 in, we'd get another 100 grand in match. But obviously, we don't have that right now, and the system supports what we're doing. So there's some things like that. Don't forget that we got the grant for the bus barn, and we're looking for that location right now. We have some pretty solid ideas where to go. We're going to put GPS on the buses. Just like we're going to do snow plows, so we know where those are at all times of the day, and it'd be kind of cool to see where everything's at. And
if I could, Chairman, too, the bus barn, and then 6 additional vehicles, and the state announced CVP, so Consolidated Vehicle Procurement got announced yesterday. And the reason I'm really saying this is our 5310 partners, so we're Section 5311 Rural Transit. We do have those non-public system partners in Kankakee County, KCTC, that utilize buses. Yeah. Good Shepherd Manor. That application, if this can make it to the public, would be great. That application was released yesterday. So any of our partners that are doing rural transit in Kankakee County that aren't necessarily public rural transit, they're going to be able to apply for those buses too. So it's been a long time coming, but we're happy that they were able to announce it yesterday.
Good news. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on this? So Mr. Snipes.
Yeah, just one on the far-fetched end of the spectrum for on the economic end of the spectrum, because of the benefit to the whole entire community, have we considered going after any ARPA funds, or does it qualify?
So, we received a CRISA allotment. That's I don't even know what CRISA stands for. I apologize. I'm not even going to make it up. We received funds under ARPA for CRISA. There was an allotment. Then we received a second allotment, and we've been utilizing those funds. I would say that in the state of Illinois, I'm not trying to be too critical of this, but we've offset our downstate operating assistance dollars, which is a statutory obligation of our General Assembly to give funds to transit. We used those federal dollars, and then we didn't spend the dope money. as far as we're concerned, that should have been an additional offering, right? That would be the ideal scenario. But based on the match requirements, I mean, some of our matches are 65-35, some are 80-20, some are 50-50. It really becomes kind of a very complicated equation. So we were able to use ARPA funds for transit in the previous year. I think if there are some holdover funds, we'll continue to use them. But right now, the way we're billing is just directly to the 5311, Section 5311, and then downstate operating assistance. So we've gotten funds. I don't know that we'll get any more funds. Now, if other entities wanted to utilize funds, certainly as a system, we're happy to talk about that. If I know that it got brought up at the last meeting, if other entities, some of the townships want to look for vehicles, CVP is available now, so this would be a time for them to be applying for vehicles on their own, and not necessarily tied to ARPA, but tied to available assets within the state of Illinois. So I mean, it's an opportune time, and maybe it's not necessarily in partnership with us. Maybe it's a vehicle. Maybe they want to contact us and ask to schedule some rides with us. We'd be willing to look into that. So,
And just so we're clear, you can't use ARPA money as local match for federal.
yeah,
money.
it becomes a federal to federal issue.
Right, even if it's state passed through. So we can't use our local money as the local match for the federal transportation money. It's against the law. Yeah. Believe me, a lot of people wish we could, because we could do so much more, but we're always missing that gap, on the front end, the 20% on our side.
Or 35% when you're driving the buses. And that,
Yeah.
I mean, it really does, maximizing that grant, it's $700,000 of local cash would be required for us to match the grant.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? All right, this would take a roll call, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber. Mr. Payton. Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield. Mr. Carrico. Mr. Eckhoff. Mr. Featherling. Mr. Donnell. Mr. Miller. Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the Vanguard. Next item, 46.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing the County Board Chairman to sign an agreement with Vanguard Energy Service for natural gas.
Alrighty, and this motion would include both the agreement and the addendum to the Master Energy Service Agreement. Mr. Featherling, second. Mr. Lear. Just an FYI to the committee, we mentioned this in finance. It's a very volatile gas market when we did this, and about 3 days later, I got a call from Mike Holmes saying the market was going nuts, and that it already jumped a penny, and their estimate was within 3 or 4 weeks it was going to be up 20 cents a therm. And we made a decision then I went to the state's attorney and said, would you consider this that proverbial emergency because of the Ukraine situation and the sometimes logical and sometimes illogical volatility in the associated markets. Doesn't mean it's not real. So they said, go ahead and pull the trigger and lock it in, because it potentially could have cost us another 20 or 30 grand. So in this case, it just went up a penny, and I said lock it in at that 0.449. That was a penny more than the top of our range out of committee. But I can't tell you where it's at today. It could be lower, it could be higher, but we're not going to get back down to the 31 cents anytime soon. And by the way, we have that 31 cents until October. So where everybody else is paying 70 and 75, we're at 35 cents a therm, or 31. So we're pretty good. We're going to get through this year, but what happens after this is the question. So I don't see it going much lower than the 449. And if it does, well, it worked good for us the previous 4 years, right? So is there any other thoughts on that? Questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy.
Aye.
Mr. Lear.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber. Mr. Payton. Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield. Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling. Mr. Donnell. Mr. Miller. Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, under ARPA fund projects.
47.
Oh. Mr. Iden wants to get paid.
Can we put that off
So
until next
selfish.
meeting?
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. So this is, a formality of this is we have to set the pay for the county engineer. So this is that formality and send this into IDOT. Is there a motion per this document in the back here? And by the way, what's the reimbursement again? It's 50% if we pay up to 90%, correct? Of the recommended.
The county receives 50% back of the salary of the county engineer as long as the county is paying a minimum of 95% of the
95.
recommended salary.
Okay, thanks. I got one more explanation out of Mark before he left. That was great. I'm like Columbo. One more thing. So is there a motion on the county engineer's salary? Mr. Kirkstra, second. Ms. Hudson? That'll need to be a roll call vote. Is there a question first? I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the amount for this period of time is what's stated there. The amount for this
Correct.
period of time. So
Yes.
from 3/27 to 12/31, it's not the annual rate, that is the pay.
That is the rate, and there's no COLAs or anything on top of that? Nope, that's it. This is it for those time periods. I never asked that question before, if there was, COLAs in this position or not, so,
And it would be renegotiated at that point.
yes.
The
Yeah,
new
it's-
salary would be approved.
Exactly, we'll come back here, any adjustments. Yes, sir.
There's no renegotiation. The county executed a 6-year contract, so whatever's in that 6-year contract is what the county engineers pay. And that's dependent on what the state recommended salary is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we approved the percentage, I believe, and so then if I don't see him dropping it anytime soon. I don't know that that's happened. So it can only go up on their recommendation, so. Alrighty, ready? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mr. Snipes. Aye. Mr. Seroy. Aye. Mr. Lear. Aye. Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Out of the next group of ARPA funded projects, if you will, is there any one of these that you would like to consider separately? Yes, Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Permission to be abstained from one vote on this, number 51.
51?
Yes. I just want to disclose I am.
For the record, so if it
For the
stays
record.
consent, you're voting, you're abstaining from that
I'm
vote?
abstaining, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's, since you're employed there, I get it. Is there any others that would like to be considered separately? Yes, Ms. Weber?
Thank you. I just wondered if you had a clarification on the Limestone Park.
I could find no parks within the village of Limestone, so it would be the full amount,
Be the 10,000 instead of what's here?
correct, right?
So it's stating 5590 in the resolution.
Yeah, because 5590. Steve? Could you, is that the maximum allowable based on revenue differences or could you say it in the microphone, please?
5,590 is what their financials and what they requested.
What they were eligible for. So
Yeah,
the
no.
question was, is if they had a park within the village of Limestone, then the village would be asked to pay half of that. That is not the case. So this is the full amount that's in there.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I looked again yesterday because Mr. Long is unavailable. So I couldn't get an answer on that from him. So I went to the maps and I couldn't find one in the city or
that's
the
great.
village. Alrighty, so everything's together. Is there a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Snipes?
1 second. I know I'm looking at the F-51. Just some clarification, there's no prohibition for faith-based or how is this, or parochial? Let me put it there with parochial schools.
No, there is. The only restriction is from the U.S. Supreme Court, and I may say this incorrectly, but it can't be used for proselytizing, preaching, those types of things, but it could be used for air circulation in a school or filtration or a food bank program that they do. So if they are just looking for an air conditioning for a church, then that's not eligible per the Supreme Court of the United States. But if it was money for their food pantry program, then that's eligible because it's not about proselytizing faith. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
So the youth program was something outside of.
Correct. Like
the
in this case,
proselytizing.
Mac, it's a reimbursement if they get the project, and they would submit a receipt to us, the air quality and circulation project, and we're saying we would reimburse up to $10,000.
Okay. So,
And so they're asking other municipalities with students that are from their towns to do the same.
okay.
Then I can't say which ones, I just know one for sure. And it's not on the front end, that's the important thing, so we can get into that. So it's, if they spend it, they get the project done, then they come back to us, and we're agreeing that we reimburse that with a receipt. Steve, is that the best way to put it? Because that's what the Department of Treasury wants from us, is that paper trail. Okay, so there's a motion to combine and approve. Do we have motion and second?
I'd say.
We don't have a first and a second. Mr. Carrico, second. Mr. Fairfield? Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Would you like me to read them into the record?
Yeah, you know, legality, that might be something.
Okay.
Terry, do you agree?
I get paid by the word, so. Authorizing expenditure for fiscal year 2021, Fund 95 for the following: Limestone Township, Limestone Park District, and Laffey's Tiny Tap Incorporated, and Fund 98, Lost Revenue Fund to Bishop McNamara High School.
All right. Now we're ready for roll call vote,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy. Aye. Mr. Lear. Aye. Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mr. Payton.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Kirko.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Ms. Hudson. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Raymond.
No.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. For the record, this is for the consent. Are you voting, Ms. Parker, for everything but abstaining from the one?
That's it, yes,
Just let the record reflect that. Thank you.
everything but.
Because when you voted no, it's for, you voted no to everything.
No, no.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Abstain for the one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. S.
thank you, Chairman. As long as Mr. Hendrickson gets paid by the word, I don't think he ever read the agreement in for the resolution appropriating the payment into the record.
This is your fault. You skipped by it.
He can cut your budget, though. He has that kind of.
Resolution appropriating funds for the payment of the county engineer's salary for number 47. Thank you.
With great power.
Continue.
comes great
We are nothing without rules, correct? All right, moving on. Openings.
One opening on the Clausen Park Drainage District, one opening on the Exline Creek Drainage District, one opening on the McGilvery Special Drainage District, one opening on the Emergency Telephone System Board, two openings on the Moments Fire Protection District, two openings on the Canavan Drainage District, two openings on the Mantino No. 9 Drainage District, two openings on the Kinky County Farmland Assessment Review Committee.
Thank you. Is that overtime? Sorry. He's gonna abuse me. Under new business, is there anybody that has any new business today? I had one thing that I wanted to bring up. It's not in the form of a proclamation or anything yet. I was thinking we may do that if the executive committee chooses it this month to bring it to full board. But Mr. Lear was asking, you know, about Ukraine and, you know, if we were going to say or do anything symbolically to show that support, and because there's many on the board that do. And they're also appreciative of those Russian people who stood up against what their government is doing right now. And so while I didn't have an immediate answer, I did look into some things. I talked to the VAC again. It would not be improper for us to fly the Ukrainian flag in a lower, inferior position on our flag to remind the public that we're thinking about them. And so I just didn't go spend the money. Even if you could find a Ukrainian flag right now, it's like 6 weeks to get one, but I wouldn't just go spend that money if the board said don't do it. or if they feel uncomfortable with doing something like that to show that support. I will wait until executive, but you guys could tell me head nod, do we want to make that statement and then get it on order, because it may be that long before we get it anyway. About $80 roughly is what they cost. It's the ones that won't tear up in the wind. So is there any thoughts there? Mr. Kirkstra, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I deeply appreciate the fact that you brought this up. I think it is one thing that we need to stand in solidarity with for those people over there. But as far as the flag is concerned, if it would be more convenient and more expedient, any type of blue and yellow bunting to be displayed would show just as much support as their flag, which we'd have a difficult time getting, but we can put that up right away and to show our solidarity with them.
So I don't know how the committee feels about that. I called a local vendor to make something as you were describing, and they can't. So I don't, it was to either make a flag or something like that we can hang on the building, and they don't have the colors.
They still know.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those out there that aren't the right color scheme.
Right.
Because everybody's trying to capitalize on it.
I just thought it might be a
Sick
more
and twisted
expedient.
way, so.
Yeah. But
Any other thoughts there? Is that something you don't want me to do? Do you want to talk about it in executive committee and then put something out of order then? Or, I mean, I just thought I'd throw it out now instead of burning 3 weeks, so.
Chairman Wheeler? Chairman Wheeler?
Hold on just 1 second, Mr. Hunter. Let me answer Mr. Featherling's question. What was your question again?
It's 2 weeks away, over 2 weeks.
Yeah. So it still could be another 2 or 3 weeks on order, even if I ordered it today, so. Yes, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, I think we had a substantial discussion yesterday with Kirkstra, Carolyn, you and myself, and I thought it was a good idea, and I think somebody used the word solidarity, and I think we need to support that. You know, as you've described it, I don't think that any person would have any issue with that. When you take a look at the horrendous conditions that the folks are being subjected to over there, you know, it kind of reminds me of Hitler in terms of what he did to Poland and you know, back in the day. But I think it's a good insight on your part to show some support, and I haven't heard anybody in the community voice any adverse comments about, you know, something that which you're considering.
Thank you. It's something small. My main concern was to not disrespect the American flag, the state of Illinois. It would be flown in an inferior position to those much lower down the pole.
I think the word is subordinate. I think position. I think.
Okay. Mr. Snipes.
I think it's admirable, but I also say what happens to the flag after this is over. Where do we put it? How do we discard it? I would, if, and it's just a suggestion, I would that if we're going to show solidarity, is if we ourselves, along with spearheading anyone that wants to join in the county, to purchase T-shirts and kind of have we did the Hands Across America across the courthouse line all the way around, and maybe that point of solidarity with the T-shirts and the individuals holding the hands, and maybe including maybe some prayers from ministers and all that, would be, to me, more effective and would show a stronger support of solidarity. But then that's just a throwing out there. So if it does go to the executive committee, I would ask you consider.
All right, sounds like we're not going to do anything now then. So
no, I don't think.
There's enough people here and we can't vote on it, so I can't do anything. There's enough people that said they don't want to do it in this room under the way that I presented it. So we have to wait. We have to wait. I can't act unilaterally. So we'll have to go to a vote to executive on just what we do. I thought I came up with something that was pretty agnostic and pretty easy to deal with, but apparently that's not the case. So,
Mr. Chair,
yeah, yes.
Mr. Chairman, you said the cost is only $80?
Roughly, but we can't vote to authorize the spending of that $80.
I understand that, but I'd be willing to help you with the $80 expenditure. And I'm not hearing adverse comments about what we can't do. You know, and I'm not asking you to do something unilaterally, but I'm sure if you poll the attendees, that I'm sure we could come up with $80.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to put in a $20 donation right now to purchase a flag, Ukrainian flag to display at our.
Okay. It's not a problem. I'll go ahead and order the thing on my own dime, and we'll talk about how we're going to split it up later amongst those who wants to share.
Thank you,
that.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
We will make sure in executive committee we have the authority to fly it on our flagpole. I just want to get it on order now because I don't want to wait another month. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be seeing this situation protracted for a long period of time. So I expect us to probably buy more flags as this one gets tagged. So that's my opinion.
I say go ahead and order it, and as I said, I'll put $20 in toward the cost of it. It won't cost the county anything. Anybody else wanted to pitch in, they can.
Okay. Miss Parker?
I'll pay for it.
We'll take care of it. We'll split it up, those that want to share in that cost together. $2 a piece is much better than, and I appreciate that, for those that want to support people who enjoy freedom around the world. So, Mr. Snipes.
Yeah, the comment is not in contrast to that, it's in addition to that. I'm just saying that there's opportunity that we want to allow the people outside of just the county board to come together, and if we have t-shirts that we buy ourselves, it is no cost to anyone else. Certainly we're not in opposition, we're just saying we want to take it even to another level. When we had Hands Across America, we did something in the county, but we allowed the people to come together, and that solidarity tends to bring people together, and it shows the extension of from our leadership to the leadership of the community to kind of join in together and do something. It just makes it a collaborative effort.
Okay. All right, we'll get something on order. I appreciate that. Is there any other new business or old business? Other business? Am I starting something? There's going to be our own little war here going on. Mr. Hess?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Mr. Hess makes a motion. Mr. Featherly makes a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say